One side on a small hill in town stood an empty building, similar to a barn but built from stone blocks. An office upstairs overlooking the floor below and a wide open space to work. Grun looked at the building, his light coin pouch burning. There was no way he could afford to rent a big building like this. Even outside was an open area in front with storages. Rickard took him around explaining the plumbing system and waste removal. Grun wanted to stop him as this was far too much. Rickard nodded. Given your situation, I will let you use the building for free for the first 3 months, or moon cycles, as you call it. He gestured towards the empty building before them. The local guild, a company or organization which allows hunters to have a place to get jobs and rest after their long journeys. They have plenty of hides stored away which they would have sold to merchants. But given this opportunity, Rickard requested him to take the hides and turn it into leather which would be worth much more to the market. That would cover his rent of the building for the 3-month cycle. Grun couldn't believe it, such empathy. Rickard also handed him a scroll with a key. One of the guards came closer, his muscles aching from the new training they were going through but happy to serve. Follow this young man, and he will take you to a temporary housing while we work out the paperwork. Invest your knowledge and skill into my town, and I will make sure you and your family have no reason to fear any danger to your lives, be it beasts, monsters, or bandits. Not even the corrupt royals have power in my territory. I am the only rule. That last line made Grun shiver a little. This man was a give-and-take type. He offers kindness and a chance to live and hopefully thrive in his town, but he can just as easily take it away. From there, Rickard went over to the housing district. He walked up the steps and knocked on the door. Slater nearly fell back against the wall when he saw him standing there. "My lord, what brings you here to the resident area? You could have sent someone to fetch me." Rickard nodded. "Indeed, I could have, but I was nearby and something had just crossed my mind. If I may have a moment of your time." Slater didn't hesitate. He welcomed the lord of the town nervously into his home. He sat down. Simple home interior, a sofa, a small table, small stack of books in the corner. Slater wanted to apologize, but Rickard held his hand up. "No need, I see nothing wrong." His eldest daughter placed a cup of tea down and quickly stepped out again. Rickard picked up the tea. "How are they doing in school? Are they managing?" Slater was nervous as he sat on the edge of the chair. "Yes, my lord. My eldest is already capable of reading books on her own. The youngest still sits with her to try and improve as well." It was such a random question. Rickard sipped the tea. "Good to know. Perhaps I may ask your eldest a favor." Slater was understandably very protective of his daughters given where they came from. He nodded, doing his best to fight against all kinds of thoughts. "We have a new resident who is going to bring great value to our town. It seems he has a daughter around her age as well. Perhaps you can have your daughter help her settle in at school. She is new to our town and has no knowledge of education." Slater let out a breath of relief. He turned to see his daughter standing in the doorway to the kitchen. She smiled and nodded, which made him smile as well. "Very well, my lord. I am sure she would love to help another. Just how you gave us a chance, why not help someone else?" Rickard sipped down the last of the tea and stood up. He still had a lot to do. "You are a good man, Slater. Some may say you are too strict a parent, but your home feels calm. Even your words you have just said. I am glad my investment is going well." He turned to his daughter, who suddenly got nervous as well. "Thank you, young lady. You have a good heart." After Rickard left, Slater sat down again with his daughters coming into the living room. He looked at his eldest. She had always been kind to others, even when they were in that horrible place, just like how her mother was. Rickard returned to the mansion where Wren awaited him. She handed him a scroll which Lydia dropped off, the results of the new training. Ren seemed concerned. The new training the guards went through was horrible. He smiled, noticing her concern. Be at ease, Ren. They all signed up even after I explained that this training might push them to death's doorstep. She simply nodded. I know, my lord. It's just hard to see them suffer like that. He looked at the scroll, reading the results so far. The guards were going through similar training that he had secretly put Lydia through. Whoever the other knights were out there, they wouldn't stand a chance against her, let alone do those things. Much had happened since Arya freed Rickard. The small town in the middle of nowhere was suddenly often visited by merchants. An entire city was under Rickard's control as his territory started spreading. Even the roads in between had gotten a lot safer, even with bandits often seen sitting around in groups along the road. Rickard was ready to take on a massive task. It would create a lot more work, but for the time being his focus was somewhere else. Arya had returned as well and assisted him with the major preparations. He gave a small chest of gold coins neatly stacked to the Hunters' Guild, and quests popped up on the board for certain beasts to be hunted. Going through the town, there was much to do. The market area was in a buzz, as well as merchants used this opportunity to make coin, bringing in all kinds of goods on request as fast as they could. The town was on hold for business during the holiday. Banners and colorful flags went up everywhere. Roxy sat in her cave reading the scroll. She had a strong grin. So that asshole remembers to invite me as well as he. About a week later that evening, the town lit up with lanterns and music. The festive mood was high. Rickard sat at the head of a long table that was set up in the middle of the town, down the long main road. There were fires with meat and other foods being prepared. Roxy stumbled through the crowd and slammed her mug down on the table next to him. Sup, your hiney. You look like a little god in a little town, with everyone coming to you wanting to shake your hand and all that stuff. She gulped down the ale in her mug and slammed it down again, clearly already drunk. Rickard laughed. He was happy she was enjoying herself. He was happy everyone was having a good time. It had been a long year after all. Arya sat next to him with her plate fully stacked with honey-coated meat. She loved it. It was just a good party deep into the night. In the meantime, everywhere else beyond the town was not in such a festive mood. A message was delivered to Lydia. She had been in contact with someone from her past, and they were on the move. She threw the note into the fire and looked at Maya, who was dancing with the people. She smiled. Seeing her so happy was worlds apart from her previous self. She would do anything to ensure she remained that happy, which was why she was secretly dealing with a matter to secure her future. During the party, she slipped away and left a note on Maya's bed. From there, she gathered her armor and stepped out of town in the dark of night. Morning after the festival, Maya sat nervously in Rickard's office. He was looking at the note that was left behind. Simple words. If I do not return, please keep moving forward. You have a wonderful future here. I must do this to ensure the incident of the Royal Island does not get repeated. The rest of the note was just a few words of appreciation. He returned the note to her. He was calm, thought for a moment and nodded. Return to your position and keep the town calm. At this moment, I do not wish the people to panic or know just yet until we can figure out what is going on. She stood up. She wanted to go look for her, but Rickard noticed her looking around. Calm yourself, Maya. Lydia is the head of the guards. Do I need to remind you who I am, or have you decided to lose faith in me? She stepped back nervously. No, my lord, I just... He stood up, walked around the desk, and rested his hand on her shoulder. I know what you're thinking. Are those things somewhere close to here? This is where I need you to be strong. Don't forget, you're the symbol of this town. People will panic if you panic. He removed his hand from her and walked over to his window. I will personally investigate this matter. We will find out what is going on. Maya nodded slightly and left. She may feel powerless, but knew Rickard was capable of great things. But could he stand against those things if they are the same? After she left, he didn't even turn to Arya, who stood on one side by Ren. Arya, find her. 3 simple words with a strong tone. Arya nodded and walked out the door. Ren stood nervously. Rickard had a frown and a strange look in his eyes as he just stared out the window. In his hand, he rolled the small metal orb between his fingers. Arya stepped out into the forest. She looked at her hand. The palm of her hand started to move, and her skin folded open, revealing a spinneret. She looked around and let out a sigh. She understood what it meant if someone pissed her father off. The battle against Drak was a reminder of enough. That day she heard an all-powerful dragon squeal in panic as its head was nearly ripped off. No one would believe the alpha dragon would beg for its life like that. She placed her hand on the ground and waited. The ground started to move and the trees started to shake. It got darker, the sunlight being blocked out as small black spiders started to surround her. The sound of bones changing its shape and eyes turning red. Arya returned to her original form, half spider, half human. Suddenly the spider spread out in all directions away from her. Then another wave came out of the ground and spread, followed by a third wave. Thousands of little spiders spread out through the forest. Back in town, Ren walked into Maya's office. She had a note in hand from Rickard. She took her place on one side in her office and just waited as she read the note. Rickard had sent Ren to watch over her. As his own personal assistant, he gave her the right to stand as his representative and witness to big decisions she had to make in his place. The servants were all dismissed for the day, given time off to return to their rooms or go into town. The mansion was on lockdown. Nightfall, far away from the forest in a rocky area, Lydia stood with her weapon drawn. The other knights weakened. A lady came walking forward. She glared at her. You are different, it shouldn't be. There is no record of someone being this strong. Who are you? She clicked her tongue. These soldiers, the exact same as the ones who laid their assault on the royal city. Many of them were defeated. The scary part was what remained. Their bodies dissolved into blue particles, leaving no trace behind. Their leader, this lady, didn't care at all how many of her forces she cut down. Lydia looked at her hand, holding her sword. She felt strong. Last time she encountered these enemies, she was barely able to stand against them. She smiled. The other knights were shocked to see how strong she was. Lydia lifted her sword towards the lady. I don't know who you are or why you are all the way out here. I will cut you all down for what you did. Suddenly the other soldiers stepped back. The lady stepped forward. You will make a fine tool, and a fine tool has a lot of value. Lydia launched forward just like how she trained. Fast, precise, and focused on a weak point. Everyone fell quiet when her sword pierced the lady's head. Her sword went all the way through. All those hours training herself to thrust that rapier finally paid off. But her moment of victory was false. The lady stood strong and pushed her head forward. Lydia jumped back, pulling her sword from her head. It was dark out, but she could see it clearly under the full moon and torches in the area. The hole in her head slowly closed, without a single drop of blood visible. She had no emotion and just stepped forward. You have shown me much, little pet. Now I need to discipline you. It happened so fast. Lydia saw it, but her body was too slow to react. A kick, hard enough in her gut to cause her to lose consciousness. The other knights were helpless. Once seen as strong knights, suddenly reminded of just how weak they were. Rain started to fall. Rickard sat in his office in the dark, looking at the rain drops running down the window. A memory came to him from a long time ago. He heard his own voice echo in his mind. The hateful scream in frustration, the anger he felt, being so powerless. A jolt of lightning lit up the night sky. Arya still out there in the rain waiting, her spiders spreading out searching. She smiled. One of her drones entered a camp with a huge tent. She saw everything. Through one of her spiderlings, she explained to her father what she was looking at. Soldiers with leather armor, mouths covered, black eyes with glowing pupils and glass-like scalps. They all surrounded a lady, taller than the average person, but she had black eyes as well, seemed more humans than the others. Rickard tilted his head a little down. In front of him stood his weapon, strength. This confirmed it. They were already here in this world as well. Drak lifted his head. He senses it, that heavy energy of Rickard, all the way from his nest. It was dark and heavy, just like that time long ago when he saw what Rickard really was. The camp was quiet, soldiers just standing still, no communication with each other or doing anything. They just stood there. Inside the big tent in the middle, the knights were all bound and shoved into cages. Lydia was tied up against the main mast, completely stripped of her armor and clothing, punishment from her new master. She had her head low. The feeling of being completely overpowered sunk deep into her. The leader of these strange soldiers just sat on her makeshift throne looking at her. Lydia had a strong body, honed and trained through hard work. She had high value, more than most. As Lydia was looking at the dirt beneath her feet, she saw a small black spider coming out from under a cabinet. It was heading right for her and stopped in front of her feet. Her heart started to race, not in panic but in relief. Outside there was suddenly a commotion. Moments later, the flap of the tent went open, and a simple-looking man came walking in. He didn't even look at Lydia as he just walked up to the leader. He stopped and looked up at her. With him, another man that Lydia recognized. She wanted to call out to him to warn him, but he calmly just started to speak. Interesting seeing a mere, numbered soldier acting high and mighty. The leader sat forward, looking down at him. "Have you come to offer yourself to me, a sheep in need of a shepherd?" Soldiers started coming into the tent as well with their weapons drawn, but Rickard cared little about them. It was uneasy how calm he was in this situation. "One chance. Pack up your crap and take your shiny heads with you." She suddenly laughed at his ridiculous demand, but Rickard knew that laugh was fake, created to pretend to show emotion. She stood up, towering over him. "Little fleshling, you seem to have this all wrong. There is a better life serving me. No need to worry about anything anymore. I can think faster and better than you. I know how to keep you healthy so you can live longer." He looked up at her. "I am not your pet or slave. I know how you work. Enslave everyone and turn them into currency to trade." She suddenly stopped smiling. "You seem to know more than what you lead on. Who are you?" The other man with him stepped forward as he pulled out a smooth, long black wood stick from his coat. He placed it down, resting his hands on it in front of him like a leader about to bark out orders. A wave of energy shot from him, and Lydia, along with the other knights, felt it. "I know everything about you blanks. Name given to you because you are emotionless. You are empty inside and puppets compared to the four leaders." The leader picked up a big axe after he said that. Back in town, Arya stood calmly in the room where Maya was waiting, guarding her against the possibility that they might have come into town already. Arya's eyes turned red, spiders gathering around the town. Her father had only told her stories about these people. He also shared with her the misery they brought him. And now he was standing all alone against them once more. Lydia could only watch in awe at the battle before her. Rickard stood still as his weapon battled the leader, every attack meant to kill. She thought about the training he gave her. That time she had a mock battle against that thing. She saw for herself just how outmatched she was. It caught her axe with its bare hand, ripped it from her hand and threw it one side. It didn't even have a weapon itself, but still overpowered her. As the battle raged on, the leader noticed something. This thing she was fighting, it wasn't even alive. She could detect it was being controlled by that man standing still. She jumped back, her arm dropping on the floor, ripped off clean. Lydia gasped at the sight of it. There was no blood, just blue sparks like dry wood cracking in a fire. No muscles, flesh, or even bones, just empty inside. The leader picked up the arm and held it back in place. The skin attached again, and the arm was back where it belonged. "What are you? This man has no life in him. That is impossible." Ricard remained quiet, his weapon stepping forward to engage once more. Suddenly the other soldiers that stood quietly engaged it. They jumped on it to stop it as she leaped past towards him. Lydia called out for him, but Ricard simply drew a sword from the long stick. The blade as black as night, and a heavy feeling that made Lydia start shivering in fear. With a quick swing of his arm, the leader fell to the floor behind him. Her body split in two by the waist. He turned around and walked towards her. He stood over her holding his sword up. Lydia was starting to gasp for air as a heavy, intense fear struck her. Even the other knights pressed their heads against the floor, cowering in fear. There was a presence. The moment he pulled that blade from its sheath, it was multiple times heavier than facing an alpha. Ricard looked down at it. An arm or a leg, even having your body split in two, would not kill you. Something that would frighten the average man, but I know it's all in the neck. The leader let out a loud, angry scream and reached for him, but the blade pierced her neck and sunk into the ground like a hot blade into butter. His weapon burst out of the soldiers that were piling on him and started crushing and stepping on their throats. The tent got quiet again, blue particles everywhere as the bodies dissolved. Lydia felt strength filling her once more as he sheathed his sword. She looked up at him and saw it. His expression. It was not the look of a man who had just won an impossible fight. Ricard turned away from the body and came walking towards her. He kept looking at the floor, seemingly disappointed. He went behind her and cut the ropes. Lydia stepped forward, rubbing her arms where the ropes were cutting her. She turned around to look at him. "My lord, I am." He shook his head as he removed his coat and placed it over her to cover her up. "You have nothing to apologize for, Captain. I should have known they were here already. This is on me." She saw sadness in his eyes. He nodded to the other knights, who were just looking at the blue particles. "Go free your fellow knights. I just need a moment." Knowing she couldn't argue with him, she just nodded and went over to free the others. Ricard sat on the throne and let out a heavy sigh, the voices of the past in his head, the laughter, the joy, the struggle, and the war. His hands shaking a little as the one voice he had been trying to ignore came to his memory. "No matter how much you must fight, Ray, I am always here right next to you." He looked a little to his left. There was no one. He balled his fist and shook his head. Back in town, Arya saw everything through her drones. She had seen her father make that expression before, fight that battle inside himself. She looked down at Maya, who was sitting by the table waiting for any news. "It's over, Lady Maya. My father and the captain are on their way home." Maya stood up, her face lit up and a big smile with tears rolling down her cheeks. Arya stepped closer and held her in her arms. The battle was won without anyone knowing, but something else has just started. She could feel it. Even Drak, who was far away on his nest, grumbled. He looked out over the horizon as the sun started to come up. Not even he could sense these enemies Ricard had battled. The town was busy as always. People going about their day, children in school and merchants coming into town to barter their goods. None of them knew what happened in the forest beyond the town's limits. Ricard sat on a small stool next to Lydia's bed, her arm and most of her body bandaged up. She was aching all over. Too much time had passed for Chroma Vita to work. Thus, She had to endure patiently for her body to heal. On the bed next to her, Maya sat trying to hide her concern for her. And in the corner, just standing with her arms crossed and eyes closed, Arya waited as Rickard sighed. Behind the closed door, he explained to them. They are called blanks, soldiers programmed to do one thing, conquer. By now, I am sure all of you are wondering why I am so different and know these things. Arya frowned a little, knowing her father would not simply share this information without reason. As you two know by now, I was sealed 500 years ago in a timeless pocket dimension, if you want to call it that. But before that I was somewhere else completely, another world. Lydia's eyes widened a little. Another world, beyond the ocean. Rickard smiled a little, not for her lack of knowledge, but just how much easier it would have been if that was the case. No, I mean beyond the sky, far away from here. I lived in a world similar to this one, but far more advanced. Arya opened her eyes a little, seeing her father's knuckles turning white as he balled his fist on his lap. We were at war with the blanks for 20 years before it happened. Something reached out to me, and I grasped it with both hands. Then I got the power to turn the tide of the war. A strange, focused silence rested in the room as he explained the impossible past. For 70 years the war carried on, until I managed to free my world from the grasp of the blanks. Then we learned that we were not alone. Another species reached out to us asking us for aid to save their world also from the blanks. We learned that day that the blanks were not just a global problem, but an invading force on a larger scale. For another 50 years, we waged war against the blanks and started taking back what they took. That is why I know about them. Lydia looked down at her bandaged hand, trying to put his words into thought. This was information that would shock even the best scholar out there. One more thing, Lydia. She looked up at him. He had a stronger expression this time. That large lady we defeated, it was still a low-ranking one, a numbered soldiers as we called them. They led the foot soldiers, which they pretty much have a near infinite supply of. He stood up. They may show emotions, but it's not real. It's been programmed into them to trick their prey. You saw it for yourself, what was left after the battle. Lydia lowered her head. Maya was confused. Wait, what was left? She looked at Rickard and then at Lydia, who spoke softly. There was nothing left. She looked up at Maya. No corpse or any sign that they were there. They just dissolved into small blue lights after they were defeated. Maya felt a strange feeling sinking into her gut, seeing what they did to Lydia and no enemy to blame for it. Before they left, Rickard looked at Lydia. You didn't lose because you're weak, Captain. The human body has a limit. Pushing beyond that is death. He placed his finger on his forehead. But the mind is infinite. He opened the door and let Arya step out first. He looked back at them with a smile. Rest and heal. Once you are ready, we take the next step. Walking out of the hospital, Arya looked at her father. You haven't told them everything, she added. Rickard nodded. Perhaps in time, but for now that was enough. Arya remembers growing up hearing him tell her the stories of his past. She smiled and hooked her arm on his. I wish I can one day meet the real you, Dad. He smiled and nodded. We share the same wish, Silky. Arya was happy. Silky was a nickname he gave her when she was younger, a name he had not used since she brought him back. As life went on in the small town somewhere else, powerful beings started to show concern. A deep voice echoed in the dark void. He is gaining his strength daily. We know what will happen once he gains all his power back. Another voice. Then we seal him once more, this time not on a world but may in a sun. A third voice. Surely you jest. You honestly think a sun would contain that abomination? We screwed up big by wiping everything in that sector. A fourth voice. It matters not. I say we strike him now while he is still weak. The fifth voice, much stronger and dominating over them all. That is enough. I made my choice. It is impossible to kill him, not as long as that thing has his main body hidden away. We would simply be destroying a drone, one he could easily rebuild. The first voice again. Then we wait. It seems our actions had put our lives in his hands. Our time has become limited. Far beyond the imagination of anyone, the blank still kept spreading out, an entire galaxy being swallowed by an external force. The ever-cast infinite of a dark force,